Welcome to Firearms Today with David Cooper and Dalen Savage on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. From buying a gun, ammo, and gun safety, David and Dalen can point you in the right direction by calling 615-737-9986. Now, here they are, the experts behind Firearms Today, David Cooper and Dalen Savage.
Welcome to Firearms Today on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. I'm your host, David Cooper, and my co-host, Dalen Savage. How are you, Dalen?
Good, David.
All right. Well, tonight we have a very, very special guest. We have Walker English from Arsenal Firearms. We had an amazing event on Saturday over at the shooting range. For those of you who made it, we got to shoot some of Arsenal's best guns. These were phenomenal. We were shooting 5.56. We can't shoot the AKs at the range. I wish we could, but it's a little short. So we were able to shoot some 5.56 rifles that look like AKs and some AR pistols that look like the AK pistols, and they were fantastic. I got to tell you, these things are accurate. So tonight, we'd love to have some callers at 615-737-9986 or 615-737-WWTN. I was on the phone with a manufacturer the other day and trying to drum up some business and try and see how we could work closer together. And they said something really, really interesting to me, and it doesn't really show in this area very much. There are parts of the country that are still having a very hard time getting certain calibers besides 22 and 22 Magnum. And what they said to me was very simple. At some point in the last year, there's been a change in, I don't know if it's a law or a process, but up until 2014, this year, when companies were bringing in powder from overseas for the domestic civilian market, because to my understanding, most, if not all the powder that's manufactured here in the United States is going to the military. I know, according to this one company, almost everything that Alliant makes is going to ATK's military division and not to their consumer division. So we're getting powder from Yugoslavia, Czechoslovakia, all these other places. And so I found out that up until 2014, you could bring in an entire container ship of powder. So maybe 200 containers of nothing but powder for the civilian U.S. market. Now it's one container on an entire ship. Walker, have you heard anything about that? Have you seen that? What do you think or feel based upon where you are in the industry, and does that affect what you do for test fire, for example?
Yeah. First of all, I really appreciate you having me on here. And concerning the powder, I haven't heard anything directly about limiting the amount of powder that's brought into the country. It wouldn't surprise me at all because the way things have been trending from an international standpoint is that they want to limit the accessibility of firearms and ammunition. And a lot of people on the left have realized that, hey, if you really want to stick it to the shooter, then try and limit their accessibility to ammo. That's why you see a lot of people out in California trying to talk about how toxic lead is without looking at the cost of the alternatives or whether or not the alternatives are toxic. But something that I wanted to bring up concerning ammo is that I've been in the business for 20 years. I've got a lot of friends within the ammunition industry with the big name companies like Winchester and Federal and Remington. And the thing that I've talked to them over and over again, and the thing that keeps getting brought up is that even when we have these huge booms with ammunition, they never buy more production capability, meaning they're not buying more machinery to make bullets or anything like that. And so they're maxed out. And so when times are slow, they turn the machines on and let them run. And when times are really big, they just let them run all the time. But if there's a time in history where you can buy ammo cheaply, then you need to get out there and buy it, because at some point, everything is cyclical. And so if it's good and you can go out and find ammo right now, then you should buy it, especially if you can get a good price on it, because there's going to come a time, whether it's a year or 2 years down the road, where you're not going to be able to find it for whatever reason. You can't get in powder. The ammunition manufacturers are making everything for the government, whatever it is. And look at what's happening in the Middle East right now. What are we doing? we're starting to ramp up again because we're having to fight another war. And so, and the first thing they said was, we're not going to send ground troops. But what are they doing now?
Advisors.
Well, yeah, maybe a little bit.
Advisors.
Yeah. I guarantee the advisors have bullets. And we're in a new fiscal year for the U.S. government. It begins October 1, I believe. They'll probably be, trying to set aside some money to buy bullets. If you can get bullets, if you can get guns now, just go out and buy them because you avoid the rush.
One of the things that I noticed is that we were able to get some big buys on some 9mm and reselling it at prices from like 5 years ago, $13.99 for a box of 50 range rounds, normally $16.99. We bought a couple 100,000 rounds of some American Eagle Federal 223, selling for $349.99 instead of $449.99. And it was going slow. Nobody was like really coming in. The 223 went pretty good. We just sold out. So we don't have any more of that. We're trying to get a whole bunch more. We've got some of the 9 left, but I expected people to be buying cases and cases of it. And it was 2 boxes, 4 boxes. And I was like, man, I can't believe, because a year ago, if I had 9 on the shelf like I do today, people would have just stolen everything to get it. I mean, it was just like a free-for-all.
If you'd had it a year ago, you'd had to ration it out and say you can only buy 2 or 3 boxes per customer. And now you're sitting there and you're probably allowing them to buy case lots, and you're scratching your head going, why aren't they buying the case? I don't know. I travel the country, and I can tell you that in some parts of the country, I see where people are wise and they buy cases of ammo because they can get it now. If
it's cheap.
Yeah, it is. It's cheap. If I were living in the Nashville area, I would absolutely, the way I always look at stuff like that is I could always use another case. Some people say, well, I've got this much ammo and so I'm good. Well, go out and shoot some, cycle through it. Mm-hmm. I could always use another case. If I can find a case for a good buy, I'm going to buy it.
Absolutely. I completely agree with you, because what's going to happen, something's going to happen somewhere, like the workplace violence, quote unquote, from, the other day, 2 days ago in Oklahoma.
Yes, I saw that.
That's not workplace violence. That's terrorism. Let's call it what it is, Mr. Obama. It is what it is. So, the big thing that we really have to work on is identifying our enemy and knowing who the enemy is. And that's not all people, but there are situations and we have to identify it. Dalen, you were telling me on ABC News, you heard something about Syrian rebels or Syrian terrorists were now saying something?
ABC News was actually reporting that the Syrian faction of ISIS is now saying that there will be repercussions against any coalition force due to the fact that we're bombing right now.
So now that we're bombing, they're going to take the people that have been coming over, for example, the southern border that's completely unchecked, and we've had what are called OTMs come in from 85 other countries, and those people that believe what the Syrian ISIS faction believes are now going to be hitting home. Unreal. Absolutely unreal. But we really need to get back on target. I know at some point we're going to wind up with a commercial, but I really want to find out about Arsenal and why Arsenal, because I know this firearm, it's more expensive, but I get it. I shot him this weekend and I get it. So what I want to have happen is I want my customers to get it. I want everyone in Nashville to get it. So when we come back from the break, what we're going to find out is why Arsenal, what about their barrels, how accurate these guns are, why you need to own one. Remember to call in at 615-737-9986.